This video is sponsored by Established Titles. Established Titles is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds, or lords and ladies in English. People can buy as little as 1 square foot of dedicated land so that they can call themselves a lord or lady. Established Titles is committed to planting a tree with every order and work with global charities, One Tree Planted, and Trees for the Future. This makes it a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while helping natural reforestation efforts. Title packs will give you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, and an official certificate with a crest. Your certificate features a unique plot number with which you can see the exact location of your land. You could then officially change your name to Lord or Lady and get it on your credit card, plane tickets, or dating profiles. The first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot within a few minutes of walking distance. Depending on how many of you want to become a lord or a lady, we can build our little nighttime spooks kingdom. It makes an amazing last-minute gift. Established Titles is actually running a massive Black Friday sale right now. Plus, if you use the code SPOOKS10, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/spooks10 to get your gifts now and help support the channel. A couple of years ago, I lived alone in an apartment. It was on the 4th floor of the building, which was a pretty typical apartment building. I think it had 5 floors total and was relatively old and close to the city. My apartment was 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom with a kitchen and a living room. It wasn't that big, but had everything that I needed for just me living there. I guess after about 3 or 4 months of being there, one night, I woke up in the middle of the night. I remembered that immediately I heard some sounds, as if there was somebody else in my apartment. I thought I heard footsteps of somebody walking near the front door. I sat up and turned my light on. The noises seemed to stop after that. I sat in bed for a while before I felt brave enough to get up and open my bedroom door. Eventually, I did. I looked out into my dark living room and kitchen. I turned on the lights, and everything seemed normal. I must have been hearing things or something. After looking around my apartment and double-checking to see that the door was still locked, I went back to bed. Nothing else that was strange happened for like a month. But then, almost the exact same thing happened again. I was woken up in the night, hearing noises inside my apartment. This time, I sat laying in bed trying hard to listen to the noises to detect what exactly they were. They really weren't that loud, but it did sound like somebody was walking inside my apartment. All of my lights were off inside, including my bedroom, so I really couldn't see a thing. I thought about reaching over and turning on the light, but I was just really focused on listening to the noise. Was there somehow a chance that I was hearing something other than what it sounded like? Maybe I was hearing someone on the floor above or below my apartment, or maybe I was just hearing random noises that buildings make. But no, this was for sure the sound of somebody walking around in my apartment, and now it sounded like the footsteps were right outside my bedroom door. Then I heard the door handle start to turn, and I heard the creak of my door opening. I thought my heart would pound right out of my chest. I got really hot and sweaty, and as the door opened, I looked right at the opening. The door got about halfway open, and I saw the figure of a man standing in the doorway. He appeared to be looking right at me, but I couldn't tell any details about him at all in the dark, just that he was there. I was sitting up in my bed, and he stood there for maybe 10 seconds before I couldn't help but let out a scream. When I did, the man backed up and shut the door. I was screaming like a crazy person for like a minute straight. By the time I composed myself, I grabbed my phone and called the police. They arrived at my apartment a while later, and when they looked around, whoever had been in my apartment was now gone. There was no evidence left behind, and there were no signs of forced entry. My door was still even locked. None of my windows were open or anything like that either. I was so puzzled by this. I knew what I had seen though, but all I was able to give was the description of a man that was sort of tall. I couldn't tell anything about him really. It was like 2 a.m. and the police left. I barely slept at all for the rest of the night. I didn't know what to do. I worried that I was going insane. Over the next few days, things got a little bit back to normal, but I was worried for something like this to happen again. And then, an idea came to me. I went to the store and I got 2 things. The first was a lock for my bedroom door, and the second was a motion detecting security camera. It was a little bit expensive, but I needed answers. I set it up inside my apartment facing the door and most of the kitchen area where I had heard the footsteps. I hid the camera as best as I could on my bookshelf. Then, I set up a lock on my bedroom door so I would feel more safe as I slept. I set the camera every night before bed, but for the longest time, nothing happened. Of course, I was happy about this, but at the same time, I was always a little bit worried about whoever it was returning. I would say it was like maybe 3 weeks since the last incident, and then something happened. I was once again woken up to hear what sounded like the door to my apartment opening. I heard footsteps once again, but this time, they were really fast. They went straight towards my bedroom door and were much louder than before. Whoever it was tried opening the door, but this time it was locked. They tried violently and quickly turning the knob several more times before stopping. I screamed that I was calling the police. This caused whoever was there to walk back and straight out my door. As soon as they left, I got up and ran out to get my camera. I went back into my bedroom and locked the door again. From there, I watched the footage. It had recorded the entire thing. When I played the video, I saw a man walking right into my apartment as if the front door wasn't even locked. When the man walked in, I recognized him. It was my next-door neighbor. I didn't know the guy well at all, but I knew that his name was Jim. I had only briefly said hi to him one time in the hallway. After seeing this, I called the police again. They arrived and had remembered me from before. This time, I had evidence to show them. When they watched the video, they went next door and confronted Jim. At first, he was pretending to be asleep and that the police woke him up, but when he was told there was video evidence, he seemed to get angry. He flat out claimed it wasn't him and denied it, but then later changed his story that he must have been sleepwalking. But the police weren't buying it and took him in. I'm really glad they did, because he later admitted to being awake the whole time, and the way he was able to get inside my apartment was because he somehow had a spare key. How he had an extra key to my place, I'm not sure, but I'm glad I don't have to worry about him anymore. This story happened when I was much younger. I was in high school at the time, and a freshman. This was during the fall semester. I had just gotten home from school and was all by myself. I have a brother, but he played football and would get home much later. I would ride the bus home from school and get back at like 3 p.m. Usually, after I got home, I had about 2 hours or so until my parents would get back from work. In that time, I usually just played video games or watched TV. Every now and then did homework. On this day, I made some pizza rolls and then went upstairs into my room to play some video games. I was up there for probably like an hour playing. I heard the sound of the front door opening and closing coming from downstairs. I knew it was more than likely either my mom or my dad getting home, and I paused the game and went downstairs to say hi and ask what we were having for dinner. I went down the hall outside my bedroom and started to walk down the stairs. I got maybe like 3 steps down when I noticed something. There was someone in the house, but it wasn't either of my parents. It was just some guy. He had sort of long, curly, light brown hair and was walking through the end of the kitchen into the dining room. I paused and immediately turned around. Thankfully, the man hadn't seen me. I ran back into my bedroom and quietly shut the door. Once I was inside, I started panicking. I was pretty scared and had no idea what to do. Back then, I didn't have a cell phone, and the only phones that we did have were downstairs in the kitchen and in the living room. I was definitely not going down there. I was afraid whoever the guy was going to come upstairs. I went around my bedroom and took everything big I could find and stacked it up against my bedroom door. Then I went and hid in the back corner of the room. I couldn't really hear anything, so I had no idea where the guy was downstairs. I got a blanket and covered myself up because I was so scared. I waited there in my room for what felt like forever. Eventually, I heard the sound of one of my parents coming home. I got up and went over to my door to listen. As I listened, I heard the front door to the house opening and then heard my dad's voice. I couldn't quite make out what he was saying, so I moved all the junk away from my front door and went out. I saw that my dad was standing in the kitchen and most of the downstairs was all messed up. He saw me and asked what was going on. I ran downstairs and told him about what had happened. We both left the house and called the police. When they got there and searched the house, whoever had been inside was gone. The guy that I had seen had been able to enter the house because I guess I forgot to lock the front door when I got home. The guy went inside and basically just messed the place up and didn't really steal anything. He then left before my dad got home. I felt bad for being sort of responsible, but at the same time, my parents weren't mad at me and were just glad that I was okay. When I was back in high school, I lived at home with my mom. It was just her and I after my parents got divorced when I was younger. My mom had a pretty good job and occasionally would get to travel. I remember in the summer she brought me with her to New York once, and another time to Chicago. However, during the school year, I wouldn't be able to go with and had to stay home because of school. During my sophomore year of high school, my mom had to go to Dallas for a couple of days, and I would be staying home by myself. She left me with money for food and gave me some instructions on how to take care of several of our houseplants. She left, and the first few days went by very smoothly. Then, it got to Friday night. I thought it was kind of cool to be on my own and have an entire house to myself. On Friday night, I stayed up pretty late. It was probably like midnight, and I was up in my bedroom watching a movie. That's when I heard a knock at the front door. I was terrified. Who on earth would be knocking on the door at midnight? It was rare that people even knocked on our door during the day. There was no way I was going to answer it, and I hoped that it would just go away. Whoever was there knocked maybe 2 more times, and then it stopped. After a few moments, I was confident that whoever was there and had been knocking had left, and I unpaused the movie. Then, probably 30 minutes later, there was knocking again. It was almost exactly the same as before. My heart sank as soon as I heard it. They knocked, and then waited about 10 seconds, and knocked again. It sounded like they weren't going to go away unless I answered the door. However, I had no plans on doing so. I quietly left my bedroom and walked over to my mom's office on the upstairs. This is a room that actually had a view of outside near the front door where whoever was knocking was. I crawled to the window and then peeked outside of it. I saw some guy standing there, and I didn't recognize him. He was wearing a hooded sweatshirt with the hood up, and I watched him knock on the door. I ducked down again, careful so that he didn't see me. He kept on knocking, though. I just wanted the guy to go away. Who was he, and what did he want? I was sitting there on the floor of my mom's office, thinking about the possibilities. I even considered answering the door, even though I didn't want to. Then, the knocking stopped. After not hearing it for a few seconds, I was hoping that the guy had gone away. I wanted to look and see if he was gone, but I was terrified. After a minute or so, I mustered up the courage to look out of the window again. This time, I saw the man was still there, and he was looking up right at me. I jumped back and ran all the way back to my bedroom. Shortly after getting back inside, I heard the sound of glass breaking coming from somewhere downstairs. I will never forget it. It was probably the most scared I've ever been. I closed my bedroom door, but sadly, it didn't have a lock on it. I had no idea what to do. As I was inside, I heard the guy walking downstairs. It seemed like he went straight towards the stairs and then started walking up. I began to panic. I had no idea what I was going to do. The only thing that came to my mind was to climb out of my bedroom window, but it was pretty high up from the ground. I went over and opened it. There was a tree close by with a large branch, and as I looked at it, I heard the man's footsteps coming down the hallway and headed right towards my bedroom. I took a deep breath and then climbed out my window onto the tree branch. I was able to sort of climb down it, and it wiggled a little, but overall seemed stable. As I was going down, I saw out of the corner of my eye my bedroom door opening. I went faster, and when I was close enough, jumped down. I got to the ground, and I was all right. Whoever the guy was now in my bedroom, though, and I sprinted as quickly as I could down the street. I found a neighbor's house that my mom and I knew pretty well, and banged on their door like crazy. Thankfully, they were still up and answered the door. They called the police for me and let me stay in their house. When the police got there, the man was gone, though. I called my mom as well, who came back home the next day. After that experience, I didn't want to be home alone for a long time.